I don't even know what to call this video. I'll figure that out as it's uploading. But this was just a topic I was passionate about and wanted to make a video sharing my thoughts, which is great shows ruining their own momentum by staggering their release schedule and taking a break mid-season. Wednesday was the latest victim of this trend, but it's not exclusive to that series. This is the current meta among streaming platforms. It's slowly starting to fizzle out, but it's still a common occurrence to see a show butcher their hype by breaking up a season into parts, releasing batches of episodes every few months. Netflix is the biggest perpetrator of this. Their biggest controversy as of right now is with Stranger Things and how they're breaking up the final season into 3 parts for no reason. So now there's just this long gap in between parts 1 and 2, and you still don't even get the complete experience until a week later. It makes no sense. When I first saw this schedule, I spent about 15 minutes just marinating on the absurdity of it, trying to piece together any sense of logic behind it, which seems to have been to release it around the holidays. Which still makes no sense! Usually it's the opposite, and executives will say that because of the busy schedule surrounding the holidays, now is the perfect time to take a break and we'll continue the season afterwards. That is what every cable network show does, and that is the exact same excuse Robert Kirkman gave as to why he decided to split season 2 of Invincible into 2 parts. Nobody liked that decision either, because it had a gap of over 4 months in between parts 1 and 2, which, as a result, saw a huge decline in viewership. At the time, most people didn't even know the second part of season 2 had released because they took their sweet time doing so. And as a result, they managed to kill all the hype they accumulated from part 1. It was so bad, in fact, that many people actually pinpoint this as the moment the series started to fall off. Now, it's not like Invincible is dead and buried, but they did switch to a weekly release schedule for their 3rd season, which, despite having another drop in viewership midway through, quickly bounced back after the final episodes released, something that wouldn't have been possible had they broken it up into parts. Things just don't stay in the public consciousness for very long, and when you end it in the middle of something, people don't usually let it hang. Especially not in the current day and age where everyone has easy access to things like TikTok and can easily fill their attention span through mindless brain rot. Basically, empty calorie content. And if you're not doing more to feed them this high quality cuisine, people are going to take the latter. It just doesn't make sense, this trend of stopping in the middle of something good. It'd be like if I was enjoying a video game, and then all of a sudden I got cock-blocked by the developers who say I have to wait an unspecified period of time in order to finish playing it. Now, I don't normally mind a hiatus when it's because of things like a production issue, and it was a necessity because something went wrong along the way. I think that's excusable in that circumstance. But that's never the case with most of these shows. Going back to Wednesday, there was no reason why they had to wait a month before releasing the second half of season 2. The only thing that did was decline the show's viewership by 43%. The same thing will probably happen with the final season of Stranger Things. Just release it all at once, or because the final season is the equivalent of 8 movies, they could just release it weekly. Either of the 2 options I mentioned would have resulted in a far more positive reception from the fan base, but instead they chose the one option that made everyone pissed. The only thing that would have made it worse is if they tried to stagger its release over the course of a year. In fact, one of the most infamous release schedules ever was for JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Stone Ocean, which is part 6 in the series. This is a masterclass in how to completely ruin hype. Stone Ocean is beloved, and I really enjoyed it. There was so much hype surrounding it when it was first announced, but then it turns out they were breaking this up into 3 waves. The first part of Stone Ocean aired in December of 2021, and everyone who watched it really enjoyed it, which is why it was understandable fans were disappointed that it wasn't the complete set. They had to wait for the second part, which had no confirmed release date, and it turns out that second part didn't come out until September 1st of 2022, almost a full year later. By that point, everyone already forgot what happened and moved on to the next hot topic, And to add insult to injury, that second part still wasn't the full package. They had to do a third release for Stone Ocean in December of 2022, so there was another sizable gap. Now, granted, that gap wasn't nearly as long as it was between parts 1 and 2, but since fans of the franchise went from having JoJo Fridays to now having to wait an entire year to finish a single season, the damage had been done. So many people had dropped the show by that point and didn't finish Stone Ocean. The reason why I mentioned Stone Ocean specifically, and subsequently the whole motivation for me making this video, is because Steel Ball Run, which is part 7 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, is once again going to be a Netflix exclusive. They just had their press conference for part 7, and what they showed looked amazing. So I'm praying Netflix doesn't fumble the ball by trying to replicate Stone Ocean's release schedule, because Steel Ball Run is widely considered to be the best part in the entire franchise, and doing so would ruin it without question. Now, to give them some credit, the anime industry, and Netflix by extension, have changed a lot since the era of Stone Ocean. We are seeing more anime being released weekly. Dawn just finished its second season, and not only did Netflix see a significant leap in viewership, but it also remained in the top 10 for non-English shows globally, which should be proof enough that this is the best route to take regarding the release of Steel Ball Run. Now, I understand why they went this route of releasing batch waves. The binge model ultimately failed. It was great for the consumers because they got to experience quality content at their own pace, but it wasn't so great for the company because they weren't able to maintain users in the long run, especially as competition in the streaming space began to grow, as well as a longer time period in between filming seasons. It was hard to keep people subscribed, which is why companies like Netflix started releasing their series into parts. It forced viewers to stay subscribed longer or resubscribe sooner, so that way they can finish their show. And companies can also make a little extra money in the process if they decided to increase their subscription prices in between parts, like they did with Stone Ocean. But that model has also failed, because if you haven't priced out your subscribers, you've certainly hurt the producers now, who are constantly losing money as a result of this consistent drop-off in viewership between parts. Sure, you can make the argument that maybe the quality declined in between seasons, but staggering your release doesn't help it bounce back. As evident with Invincible Season 3, its viewership did decrease midway through. However, because it was on a weekly release schedule, their numbers quickly recovered because fans didn't have to wait very long in order to get to the good stuff. There's just so many examples of weekly releases succeeding, yet for some reason Netflix and other head honchos in the streaming industry are still fixated on batch releases, even though they've provenly failed. Cobra Kai's final season was split into 3 parts over the course of 7 months. And each part had less and less viewers, to the point that by the time the series ended, nobody gave a fuck. Another example, the second season of that 90s show was also split into 2 parts. That gap only lasted 3 months, but they had an 80% decline in viewership, which resulted in the show being cancelled. I imagine if I asked who appreciates a break in the middle of something they're enjoying, there'd be crickets. It doesn't make sense. Who's going to be watching Stranger Things and in the middle of a crucial moment go like, holy, stop, but wait, pump the brakes, I'm having too much fun. Wow. I'm going to need a moment to process what's happened. I'll finish watching this 6 months down the line. Like, that's not happening. Nobody does that because it isn't as satisfying. It's just underwhelming. I truly believed we had it right with weekly releases, because not only did it help keep a show relevant in the back of people's mind, but it was a mutually beneficial practice. The viewers got to watch it at a reasonable time span, which allowed the show to maintain a consistent viewership that gave the producers a reasonable amount of money to invest in the show, which in turn helped the distributors license and market the show amongst various platforms, helping it bring in more viewers and more money as a result. It also doesn't have to be limited to 1 episode per week. Ironheart, for all its flaws, actually had an optimal release schedule, where Disney dropped 3 episodes of the series each week. Now, granted, Ironheart only has a total of 6 episodes, so it was probably best they just released that all at once in that instance. But in the case of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, which overall has a noticeably higher number of episodes per installment, if Steel Ball Run has 39 episodes, that's 13 weeks, a little over 3 months of content if you release 3 episodes per week. You would easily be able to maintain your viewership if you did that. Now, I don't think Netflix would do that, but I just wanted to put that on the radar because I understand 39 weeks is a lot of time and dedication to a series, assuming that's the minimum. Steel Ball Run is long. So while I hate the idea of batch releases, I can't imagine people would return every week to watch the new episode for almost a year. Though I could be wrong, JoJo is a pretty big franchise. I just wouldn't say it's at the same level of hype as an anime like One Piece. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about this a little bit because it baffles me that this is still a trend within streaming. Hopefully this release schedule ends with Stranger Things and we can go into 2026 with something a little more optimal. At least that's what I'm hoping for with Steel Ball Run. That's really about it. So